All right. Well, good morning, everybody. And this is our annual Seder Insights Shir. So, as you can see, I have before you every rabbi's vanity project is to make their own Haggadah. So, I have to admit, even though I'm a vain person, I did not set out initially to make a Haggadah. I set out that every year I put together ideas for the Seder to share with you in the hopes that maybe it's something worthwhile to share at your respective Seder tables. And then I realized I was keeping a live document, and then I said, "Well, I need the words of the Haggadah to as reference for the idea." And then I realized I said the best way to organize is just to put the text that I got onto a Word document, put footnotes, and in the footnotes I get to put all the ideas over the years. So the idea is this is year number 2 of different ideas. We're not going to go through everything that was added to the Haggadah between last year and this year, but rather I'll share with you a few of the highlights that I'd like to bring to your attention. And then from there, basically, you have in the back of the room, there's the Haggadah sheets. I didn't put them at the table because you probably don't want croissant crumbs and who knows what else getting over it. And you bring it to your Seder table, like, whoa, there's a whole Beltani's donut right over here. What do you know? Got stuck between the pages. So I'll give you what we call the Torah Shabbat Peh right now, and we'll do and you'll have the Torah Shabbat Sav Havdil with you as well. All right, so a few issues. Again, I'm just going kind of in order. Each idea is just an independent one on its own. So last year at the beginning of the Haggadah, I saw this in the Mincha Sasher, but it's a well-known story cited in many places about the Chavetz Chaim. It's really talking about a Shabbos night. He has his guests over. You can tell that they're pretty hungry. They're famished. It was very long davening. Someone decided to do Karbach Shabbos without announcing it, and people are just like they are starving. So he skips Shalom Aleichem. He goes straight to Kiddush, and then someone at the table was like, "Chaim, the Baal Mishabura himself. How could he skip past Kiddush? How could he skip past Shalom Aleichem, go straight to Kiddush?" So the Chavetz Chaim said, "Look, I have guests who are hungry. I have angels who don't need to eat. The angels could wait until my guests get to eat some food." So that was what I shared last year, and then I just. That's an interesting question. It sounds like he did, but I'm not sure. Uh, no, I always tell Marissa, I say, well, I have the literal Ashes Kyle right in front of me. It's better than the song. When you think about it, maybe it's like a mushal for Torah and Shah. I know there's like different mashal what it's for. So okay. So then what I looked into afterwards is there even might be some sense of a welcome. There might be some sense of a halachic argument that can be made as well, which is that we have a mandate called Kiddush B'Makom Suda, that one is supposed to have their Kiddush meal, their meal right after making Kiddush. It's supposed to be the same place that you make Kiddush, and there's even a certain time delay that you're allowed to have, but it shouldn't be particularly long. In theory, soon after making Kiddush, you should be launching into your Suda to eat, and that means you should be having Hamotzi. So I wanted to make the argument. First of all, one has to eat their Avikoman before Chatzos, so you definitely better get there before Jewish midnight. But also, maybe there's an inyan to not dally too long, because if there's too much time that elapses between Kiddush and actually getting to the matzah itself, then it could spell trouble for Kiddush from Makom Suda.
I mean, just something interesting. Jewish midnight.
I mean, Chatzos, like a.
No, what Jewish midnight? What is
this time of year? It's 12, so we're doing 12:30, still 12:54. I put it on the schedule. I looked it up on my spot. So yeah, so it wouldn't be 12 o'clock, it'd be 12. So okay, it gives you a little bit extra time. You want to be extra makbid, you go by midnight kipshuto, 12 o'clock.
What does that mean?
Oh, so it means that you're supposed to eat the afikomen.
No, I understand that. But what is it? Why is it Jewish midnight?
Because we go based on how long the day is. We basically take the day and the night, we split it up into 12 parts. So that's why like during these long summer days, a daytime could be more than 12 hours actually, and then the halachic hours are proportional. So that's what stretches it out or makes it smaller. Okay, so that was one point that I wanted to make. Apparently, so see, Pesach Frank talks about this in Mikvarei Kodesh, and I saw an article subsequent to past Pesach by Rabbi Chaim Seiman and Rabbi Josh Weinberger called "Should Maggid Take Forever?" So I said, I don't need to write this article. Gedol v'tovim many have already done it. So I realized I put the hyperlink on a printed out document. That doesn't help you guys, but you punch it into Google if you're interested. I think it's on Torah Musics. Okay, so that was idea number one. Idea number two, this comes from Rav Yerucham Olshin. And again, I'm kind of reading from my Haggadah over here. So ironically, what I do with the Haggadah is that I translated or adapted from Hebrew Svarim into English to make it accessible, but it means I actually don't have the original text in front of me right now. Yeah.
What is there an opinion as to how long you can or shouldn't wait, or what time it would be?
Well, I think he said you should judge when your guests are overly hungry. You should judge the room.
It's in the. We have to pull out the Magen Avraham. It's the Magen Avraham in. Let's see, Reish Ayin Gimel. So I have to look back. I mean, I would assume many times in halacha, 30 minutes is like, for instance, like if you take off your tzitzis for more than 30 minutes, when you put them back on, you should be making a new bracha. 30 minutes sometimes is kind of like that zone of like, are you still being osake in a certain inyan? So I have to look more into it, but I would guess 30 minutes.
In a seder, though,
right.
Is the
yes.
Right?
So that very good.
An hour later, still it's part of
100%. And I think that's what we generally rely on. What David's saying is that, it's true. It might take some time to get through Magen and get to the matzah, but it's not like you're being mafsik. There's not a hefsik, and there's not a disruption between making kiddush and your suda. Everything you're doing is to culminate in getting to your suda and eating the matzah and everything else that results from there. So I think that is honestly what we generally rely on. But I just wanted to give a little extra oomph of maybe, you want to be more machmir. I have a strategy that I've tried to employ in the past, which is, it just depends on the nature of your Seder table. So if you're at a Seder table where it's like lots of little children and they come back with their Rebbe's Haggadah of all their ideas that they want to read at the table, so you can give quotas out and you can say, okay, we'll save the rest for Shulchan Aruch, and then at the mealtime when everyone's eating and they're satiated, we'll always connect. Satiated. So then they can listen. It's like you have all the food here to keep you guys busy, and that way I can ramble on, right? So that's a suggestion that I try to make.
Rabbi, we took out lots of during COVID.
Yeah.
Are there things in the
Yeah. So Rav Rimon, I don't have it in front of me. Rav Rimon in his Haggadah, he has a section called something like the Seder Haggadah B'Shas Hadchak, in which he basically outlines what the essential parts of the Seder are. And there's this really cool book that someone showed me a while ago. I want to get hold of it, which kind of color codes the entire Haggadah and tells you which era certain parts of the Haggadah are from. So if you know, this part with Ran Gamliel, that's the Mishnayos, this is from the Talmud, this is Geonim, Shvo Chamascha, that's like a medieval thing, right? So if you don't say Shvo Chamascha, you're still Yotzei the Seder. So kind of breaking down what the essentials are. So maybe I should have brought that, but yes, there is, or incorporated in here. Well, hopefully we shouldn't need to incorporate it, but it's good. It's good to have on hand. It's like what I said when we had that earthquake the other day. So a lot of well-meaning people were circulating the bracha in WhatsApp groups 30 minutes after the earthquake occurred. So the issue is you have to make the bracha toch kidei dibor within a few seconds. So I said, this is
there were aftershocks.
There were, okay, so maybe it will be done like us. I was gonna say the big news down here was the earthquake. The big news up in Shemayim were all the bracha vatellas that were just made. But it's it's like one of my Mesifta Rebbe moments. But anyway, I said, but now you guys know the halacha for the next time there's an earthquake. Yeah. So now we know the halacha for next time there's a reason that we need to constrain and curtail the Haggadah. Hopefully, we shouldn't have to do that. So okay, next idea is what we're celebrating. So I put this one on Bein Yisrael La'amim, because in Kiddush, or Havdalah rather, we're making distinctions between the Jewish people and between the nations. So Rav Yerucham Olshin in Yereach Moadim, so he's one of the. Actually, I think no, he didn't pass away. I think he's still alive. So hopefully Shlita. I remember it was Rav Mati Tzio Solomon from Lakewood who passed away. Rav Yerucham Olshin, God willing, live on Me'av Shana. So he points out that there seems to be two interesting passages in the Rambam. The Rambam in one place says that we're supposed to talk about the miracles and the wonders, nisim and niflaos, And also Kol Hamar B'Hareis Meshubach. So the more you talk about it, that's wonderful. And then he also talks about how this is a little bit later. He says that we should also remember. I see. I found just a typo in my Haggadah. Okay, I'll have to make notes as we're going through. That's okay. I'll catch it. I'll catch it for next year. So he says also we're supposed to remember that our ancestors denied God's existence and strayed after these hevel havel and these vanities, and they worshipped idols. And then we conclude with the true faith of Judaism. That's a part of the Haggadah. What Yerucham Olshan points out is that there's really two levels of celebration over here that the Rambam emphasizing. There's the Jewish people on kind of like the physical national level that we celebrate that we were able to physically survive Egypt. Then also on the theological level that we distinguish ourselves from the other nations as well. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit out of order because this idea actually connects to something from a new Haggadah I got. Rav Yaakov Edelstein. He was a big rabbi in Eretz Yisrael. I think he was in like the Tel Aviv or maybe a little bit north of that area. And he was a big Haredi rabbi, but apparently his community didn't realize who he was. And he was like walking their midst the whole time. They didn't realize how chashuv he was. It was very interesting reading up on him. So one idea in his Haggadah is that now this is jumping all the way toward the end of the Seder, the fourth cup of wine. So what do the, right, pop quiz time. What do the 4 cups of wine represent, my friends? Right, the four redemptions. So it says, Salti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. So God says, I'll take you out, I'll save you, I'll redeem you, and I will take you again. So what's going on with Votsesi? I'll bring you out. Right, so and then I'll save you, and I will redeem you, and I will take you. So what's taking? That's the question. You know, what do you think? What's the geula? Once God is redeemed us, what's taking for what? What's v'lakachti?
Giving the Torah out of it, taking into the way of life.
Ah, very good. So you're Machavein or Chavenis, whatever it is in feminine. I never hear it used in feminine, so I'm just guessing over here. To the Ksav Sofer. So he quotes the Ksav Sofer, who says, Shalachei bekos haravias mar b'bamir shvakim. We have a lot of praises we do over the 4th coast. Hallel b'nishmas kol chai, right? That whole long stretch. And why? Because this is a celebration of God taking us as his nation, designating us. He says, the greatest redemption is that we become the chosen people. Lo stam nayino imbnei chorin kiblanu atzmaut kamo yefen osin. So he says, it's not just simply that we became a nation. There's a lot of nations in here, a lot of ethnicities, a lot of countries. We talk about how do you actually define what a nation is, right? So it's some sort of collective that all identifies together. But he says, you know, the purpose of the redemption from Egypt wasn't just to become a nation, stam atzmaut zelo klum, to simply be an independent nation, to simply be chafshi, to be free, is not valuable enough in and of itself. The greatest value is not to just be one of the other 70 nations, but to be God's nation, and that's what Lakachti is. And this connects very well, of course. I will adopt you. I like that. That's a good rendering. I will adopt you as my own. And we take God as well. It's a mutual relationship. So, you know, and again, you can see like he's a Haredi rabbi, so he definitely, the language is very deliberate. He says, Stam atzmaut, like Yom ha'atzmaut, same word. Stam atzmaut zelo klum. And I think this is an important thing, you know, as Jewish people, we are a nation, but what makes us special is that we're not just any nation, that we're God's nation. And that means living to the morality and living up to the standards that God puts forth in his Torah. It's one of the most classic lines that gets cited in this regard when we're taken out of Egypt is the line in Pirkei Avos, who can finish for me, Eilecha ben chorin, there is no one who is free, Ella Misha osek b'Torah. The true free person is one who studies Torah. And that's what makes us unique. So, all right, I went a little bit out of order, but it connects to that idea as well, that we're not just celebrating the physical redemption from Egypt, but the spiritual and theological redemption as well, and that's what Lakachti is. Okay?
So what do you think about adding extra morors in the Seder?
In what respect?
I'm talking about different punishments, the lashings, things like that.
Oh, you're saying when we we take the wine out and
Right.
it's funny. I saw some people who right. So traditionally we take the wine out, and it's because one of the reasons because we're remembering that the Egyptians suffered, even though they're really bad. So I saw somebody this year, someone from like much more politically liberal circles. He's like, and this year because of Gaza, we should pour the whole cup out on our plates. so, so I was, you gotta. There was this group on Facebook called Union for Performative Judaism. So like they would post things like this, like like when you do like if not now, they'll do like a Havdalah during Shabbos and as an anti-Israel protest or something. I wish I could make these things up. They literally did Havdalah while the sun was still out.
Yeah, because they whip people with scallions, things like that as part of
different, like starting.
Yeah.
The Sfardim do not identify with that. Trust me. This is like all of us Ashkenazim. This is a break off from the Ashkenazim who've done that. Okay, another idea I want to share with you is the Chassam. We just did the Chassam Sofer. So now the Chassam Sofer. And I think I may have shared this in the Dvar Torah and Shul. So if you were in attendance and you remember this, you'll forgive me for the Chazara. So the Chassam Sofer, this actually, there is a Chassam Sofer Haggadah, I believe, but I was reading through the drushos of the Chassam Sofer, and I was trying to find little tidbits of Pesach ideas to pull out from his broader drushos. And he has this comment. We say in Manshtana, Halayla Hazek Kulanu Musubin, that tonight all of us recline. So the question the Chassam Sofer asks is, how is it possible that we could all be reclining on a night like this? Especially when you think about it, certain Seder tables, there are those who are my seniors, literally. There are those who are more professionally accomplished than I am. Those who are, you remember this one?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, you're just excited for it. Okay.
It's so hard. I'm not Mrs.
Right. So there's. So you know what?
Too. So.
Right. So the right. So there's a whole discussion about a woman reclining in the presence of her husband, but but if she's an isha chashuva, and then we pass him, every woman is a chashuva balabasta. So every woman gets to recline. So there we go. Everyone gets to celebrate. So, but the question is, how is it possible? How can I possibly recline in the face of these people who have higher status than I do? And so he cites it seems to be a medrash, and he track it down from Rav Yaakov Emden, that when Roman dignitaries came to visit the temple, they realized that there was no red carpet that was thrown out for them. There wasn't even a red carpet for the Jewish dignitaries that came, right? So imagine you come on one of these missions to Israel, you expect the red carpet to be rolled out for you, and then you don't have that same buzz when you arrive there. So what happens? So they turn to the administrators of the temple and they say, "No, we're foreign dignitaries. Aren't we supposed to get certain formalities and pleasantries and treatments?" So he explained that there's ein gavus lifnei hamakom, that when it comes to the temple, which is the house of God, no one is supposed to be getting special treatment. And the only only being who is supposed to be celebrated here is God in His own house. And so the Chassam Sofer tries to really connect this to what we're doing on the Pesach night. And the Pesach night also is trying to keep that kind of utopian ideal in that recognizing that when we're in the presence of God and God take us out of Egypt and we're retelling the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if I lean or you lean, but you've learned this many Masechtas and Shas, but you're at this stage in your career, you've made partner in a law firm, whatever it might be. So, but all these finite accomplishments essentially become equalized in the presence of the infinite. So that's another idea on Kulanu Musubin, and we're all able to recline when we are in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now you're going to ask me the question, what about all the things that seem to still be hierarchical when it comes to the temple, right? That's a great question. Yeah, any of you thinking about that? Yeah, still, all right, Yisraelim, Levim, Kohanim, the Kohen Gadol, right? So
what David said is right, though. At the end of the day, when we die, we're all just
right. And this was Rav Gamliel's takana, by the way, that it should be every Jew should get the simple tachrich and the simple burial shrouds. Every person, the idea of the simple wooden coffin. And so Rav Moshe Feinstein, I was talking to the colleague of mine, Rabbi Daniel Siyani, and he works in Chevra Kadisha work profession. That's what he does. So I interviewed him on I think I called the episode big funeral or something, like big pharmacy got big funeral, and he was telling me kind of about the industry. So apparently, only in the last, I'm not sure, maybe 500 years or so, I don't have the correct number. There were Kabbalistic customs that more Kabbalistic customs that made their way into the funeral process, and one of them was the idea of using a mikvah during the tahara. And there's nothing on the books until I think this Sefer Mavar Yabok, which is kind of has a lot of these customs, that talks about using a mikvah. The only thing we have a source for is using Tisha Kavin, 9 kavin of water, and pouring it on someone. And so Moshe Feinstein opposed
dipping the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing Moshe points out is a lot of these funeral homes that have mikvahs, they're not even kosher mikvahs anyway. So you're not really accomplishing anything. But no, he also says, like, you're already dead, so you're kind of tamei base. So you're as tamei as you get. But basically, Rav Moshe. So there was one, I think I have to look back at it, but he told me there's a place in Queens.
Well,
that
because what? A mikvah.
We do.
Well,
No,
we have
we don't, but it's not a mikvah. It's not set up like a mikvah.
Well, that's one of
Created
the.
like a
Well,
mikvah.
yeah,
But that was one of Ramosha's
Both
points.
of
It's
the
like it's
two
not even a real mikvah anyway. That was one of his points. But
Oh, it's not a real mikvah?
I mean, I don't know what they have here, but maintaining a real mikvah, it's like that's a. So I mean, a lot of funeral homes. So the point is, even if you have a non-real one, it basically increases the expenses of the funeral preparation. And Moshe Feinstein said, aside from the fact that we don't even have a good source for it, now you're going against one of the earliest takanos that we have, which is ensuring that everyone can be buried with dignity without having to worry about not being able to leave over an estate for their next of kin, because all the money basically went into the funeral. So now, because he even went so far as to say, even if you want to be quote unquote from and machmir and leave in your will that you want to basically be dipped in the mikvah during your tahara, it still would be inappropriate, because he doesn't say it this way, but I'm saying it this way. It's like when glot became no longer glot became the standard. Glot kosher is the standard for kashrus. So what's going to happen is the standard is going to be that you're going to have a mikvah. It'll start with some people being from her, and then it'll become the standard for everybody, and then funeral expenses go even higher than they already are. So that was how did we get into that?
Rabbi, FYI,
Cuban,
there are
the idea of making sure that, especially at least in death. Now I would argue it's a shame that only in death we have this principle. Imagine we could apply that to like weddings and other kinds of stuff in lifetime. If we could apply the same kind of principle, they've tried. I think, especially in the Haredi, even in the Haredi communities where they, in theory, might have some more control. I think it's failed, and I mean, I think certain places worked. My cousins in Borough Park area, they have a rule like for bas mitzvahs or stuff. The thing is, bas mitzvahs aren't even like a real thing in the Haredi world anyway. So you just together go out with your family to a restaurant, and that's it.
Oh yeah, I mean, in CAD, they don't allow the girls to have big parties for bar mitzvahs.
Yeah,
they used to, and then a tag is the school system
Beis Yaakov, essentially.
in Far Rockaway that my kids, two of my kids go to, and they were very upset because a few blocks down, the other cousins are going to Shalamis and they're having.
Rabbi, FYI, there are two.
So this is Rav Moshe Feinstein. He has several shivos on bas mitzvahs, but there's a line that everyone always glosses over. And they talk about more about ceremonies and parties, but it may very well apply to that as well. I'm sure he would say that. He says, if I could get, I'm talking about bas mitzvahs, but if I could get rid of bar mitzvah ceremonies, I would do that as well. So Rav Moshe Feinstein, he believed in equality. He said, I don't even want bar mitzvah ceremonies taking place in Shul. Like no weddings?
Well, you can do a wedding. Yeah, you don't have to do it so extravagant.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's one thing about Rav Moshe, it's he's very pragmatic. This is we'll see this in the shiur that we do with Rav Moshe. He's a very pragmatic posek in many regards. It would not surprise me if a simple, Gadol Hador living in an apartment in the Lower East Side was not a fan of big opulence and extravagance. I think most Gedolim probably, if they could do away with that, they would. All right, so let's flip more through the pages over here and see what I checked off. Okay, another Chasim Sofer on the line, Vayareu Osanu HaMitzrim Vayanunu. So the way it gets rendered in my Haggadah is, and the Egyptians did bad to us and afflicted us. But actually, the Chasim Sofer says another way to render this isn't that they caused bad to us, but they attributed nefarious intentions to us. And this, of course, connects, as he points out, to the idea that they thought we would join with their enemies and try to conquer Egypt. So it's not that they did bad to us, but they attributed nefarious intentions to the Jewish people.
Yeah, but that also colored how they related to us, and then they did bad to us as a consequence.
Right. Right. I mean, it's right, but that's vayanunu, right? So they oppress us, but what's the first part? It sounds redundant, like just two words for saying that they did bad things to us. So one is that they attributed nefarious intentions to us, and then as a result, they oppressed us.
Like the rest of the world is doing now.
Yeah, look, that's Maisavo Simon Labanim, right? That's why we read this. There's messages for all the doors, unfortunately.
Right. So it's like that. It's not just people, we hate you. It's like we have a reason for it's
Right.
like they're saying now there's a reason for October 7th. They're trying to
Exactly.
put a reason.
Exactly.
There's no reason. It's a
Exactly.
reason.
It's our fault that right.
We wouldn't accept it's your fault.
Precisely. This is exactly what we see throughout the generations, that they first ascribed it, all the blood. Think about all the blood libels. They ascribe nefarious actions and intentions to us, and then they have a pretext to justify their deeds against us. Now, I just want to point out one thing. This is especially an affront to us because the Jewish people, one of the things that we strongly value is something called Hakaras Hatov. Now, this is usually we do Sefer HaChinuch during this slot. So now I will quote to you from the Sefer HaChinuch itself to be Mekayim Sefer HaChinuch today. So if you remember back at gratitude. Yes. So the Sefer HaChinuch writes regarding this when it comes to parents, and again, I translated a lot of stuff here, so I'm actually not reading from the original Hebrew, but we did read it once upon a time. He says, "It is fitting for a person to acknowledge and return kindness to people who are good to him, and not to be an ungrateful," this was actually a Safari translation, "scoundrel, because that is a bad and repulsive attribute before God and people." So when he's talking about the mitzvah kibbud of aim, he explained why we have to honor our parents. He says one of the most obvious things is that, well, they brought you into this world, and hopefully they did some good things for you. Maybe they paid you Yeshiva day school tuition. Certainly, if they did that, you have what to be grateful for, and to be kafoi tov, and to deny the good that others do for you. That's something that's just like one of the most despicable mitos to have. And in fact, coming back to our good friend Rav Moshe Feinstein, Sefer Tzadkah Bracha, there's a tshuva that Rabbi Ram, he's going to be making Aliyah soon, God willing, but he has been the administrator for the Geiros based in, for the conversion based in, that's run by the Based In of America. So, as you can imagine, I interviewed him on something related to Geiros. And we did this tshuva from Rav Moshe Feinstein. And it wasn't actually, usually when you talk about Geiros and you talk about Rav Moshe Feinstein, you talk about the tshuvas like, what is the standard for Geiros? Can you retroactively annul someone's Geiros? But he actually did something that I wasn't expecting. It was a tshuva about a woman who converted, a Giores, and apparently she must have gone through like a really frum kind of conversion that they advised her not to have anything to do with her, biological family. And she reaches out to Rav Moshe Feinstein like 20 years later. Her mother's on her deathbed, and or like she's on her way to dying. She says, "I want to see my grandchildren. I've never seen them." And it's like one of the most poignant shuvas I've probably ever read in Igros Moshe, or pretty much anywhere. And this woman comes to Rav Moshe and says, like, "What can I do? Can I visit her?" And Rav Moshe, like, he makes all these arguments, and he says, even though kibbud of aim is not one of the 7 Noahide commandments of honoring one's parents, the notion of being makir tov and gratitude to someone who raised you is something that's universal, that you're required to do whether you're a Jew or a non-Jew. And the most poignant part about the tshuva is that she waited 20 years to ask this shaila. Imagine if she came to Rav Moshe Feinstein 20 years earlier before her mother was dying. But the point,
Would he have allowed it 20 years earlier?
he writes in the. I mean, it seems very clear. I have to look back to Chua. It seemed very clear to me that she should have been. He said like you have to think of like standards because you want the kids obviously not to think that they can eat pork and whatever other averos. But you could have thought of like some thoughtful, methodical way of keeping a relationship instead of having to sever it altogether. So that's like the biggest shame of it. At the end of the tshuva, it's like a bittersweet feeling. Rav Moshe saved the day, but if only she had reached out to him like 20 years earlier. So, but the point is, the Jewish people, we value Hakar Satov. So the fact that the Egyptians would try to undermine one of the very important mitos that makes us who we are, that's what really gets to the core of what it means when it says here, Vayareu Osan, that they attributed nefarious intentions. So okay, there's another Chasim Sofer. Moving right along in the Haggadah. Let's see what we should do next. Let's see. Well, need to make some progress over here. So we're gonna fly over a few pages. This is why I give you the hard copies, so you can read a lot of it at when you get your next chance.
2 weeks after Pesach.
2 weeks after. You can read on Pesach if you need extra reading material. Okay. So this is from my great grandfather, Rav Aaron Yosef Kurtz, the Sefer Kan Aaron. I didn't bring the actual text in with me, but it's a family heirloom. It's great. I think it's 3 greats. So he has a Sefer Al HaTorah and he has a Sefer HaMedrash, which I find very cryptic. So I generally read the Al HaTorah one every now and then. I find a Torah that I like to share. So it says, "B'tseisi miMitzrayim." I put this on when I was coming out of Egypt. So this is you're gonna figure out why I picked this one. This is a wacky one. So apparently, he basically says that uses the lashon of the word vayehi, and vayehi connotes apparently a sense of distress, a sense of tsar. Now, why would there be tsar as we're leaving Egypt? This is something we've been waiting to do for a very long time. So he says actually that, again, this is like based on Midrashim and Harry Potter, who knows what. Apparently, Paro, and you just got to work with this. Paro and his sorcerers, they put up some kind of magical. My great grandfather had all the similar interests that I had. This magical force that kept people from leaving Egypt, and magical fence. Or I have to look back at the original text when I was adapting it. But basically, Paro, as the Jewish people were leaving, he would kind of walk along with them a little bit, so he could kind of mitigate and minimize the extent of the miracle, because really it was Hashem who was bringing the Jewish people forward, despite whatever magic tricks that he and his sorcerers came up with. But he wanted to make it look like as if, no, we're allowing you to leave. This is totally because by our own volition we're letting Jewish people leave. So Paro kind of wanted to save face and minimize the amount of the miracle, so he would walk a little bit along with the Jewish people as they were leaving, so he could make it seem like they were leaving with his full blessings and permission, in order to kind of minimize the extent that God was the one who was truly in charge. So that's why there's a little bit of that lashon of tsar as the Jewish people are leaving. So that's a little bit of a wackier one. And when I first
divorce law, right?
What?
Veronica, you did divorce law, right?
Yeah.
Veronica does divorce law.
Point is, like, every abuser does this. Like when they're coming to the point of, oh, they're leaving. Oh, well, be nice for a minute. Hopefully she won't leave. And this is like nothing.
Pattern.
Right.
But it can also be just trepidation on the time Jewish people are leaving. This, unknown is
What's
always
familiar.
scary.
Exactly.
Yeah, they knew however bad things are, the unknown is often very frightening.
No, that's true, and we have all these issues of how the Jewish people handle their freedom in the midbars. That's okay. Back to Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein. Now I have the actual text in here for this. So we say on the words, right? So we say Mikol Tuv La'olim Ayachasir. So we thank God for all the good, and we also ask God that we not lack this goodness forever. This is actually something we say benching all the time. It's not unique to Pesach, but benching is part of the Seder. So I thought, hey, this is a great opportunity to maybe understand benching a little bit better as well. So he says on this, why do you have first a double lashon of good, and then we ask God not to take it away? What's going on over here? So he presents a story that comes up in Maseches Sanhedrin. Now, I'm sure some of you, perhaps many of you, have at some point been to, actually, we live Makos together, a lot of us. Yeah. So when we made a Sima Makos, or if you've been to Sima Makos, does anyone remember the story all the way at the end of Makos about Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues? They come to the Temple Mount, they see a fox that's right. So just to recap, right, the fox story. And then they all rend their garments, and Rabbi Akiva begins to laugh, and he says, and Rabbi Akiva is the one who sees the big picture. He sees that even though Yerushalayim now has been plowed over, that means the next prophecy will come true, that there will be a Geula Shlema, there will be some redemption waiting at the end, a light at the end of the tunnel. So there's a lesser known story with kind of like the same dialogue that occurs. They go to visit Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus on his deathbed. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus is in excruciating pain. And everyone, as you can imagine, it's very solemn. And Rabbi Akiva begins to crack up again. And
this last week,
oh, he did?
Yeah. Or very recently, you mentioned this, and he's laughing because the guy got his here in this.
Okay, what can I do? I try. I'm not always original. Not everyone heard of it. Okay. Okay, I'll do it. And you know what? As we always said in yeshiva, chazara is the ikar. So you get chazara. All right, that's good. People actually remember things I share. Wow, I don't always remember what I share. You know, this is what happens. Like I share like a Torah on a Friday night, thinking I can pull fast on people that I gave the same one like a year ago. Like, oh wow, people are actually listening that carefully. Wow, okay, that should be my biggest problem. I have to come up with original content.
Are they listening to learn, or are they listening to catch you?
You know what? We told Shema Lishma Bal Lishma. It's like the people who follow Kriyas Torah so they can correct the Balkore, right? So it's a sport. So anyway, so we're approaching the end. So I want to get in a few more ideas. So he says, Rabbi Akiva begins to laugh, and all the rabbis say, kind of socially inappropriate. Like this guy is like true shame pain over here. Why are you laughing? So he says, because Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus apparently he lived a very good life. Everything was going for him, whether it be financially, whether it be in terms of his own scholarship, socially, everything was going for him. And Rabbi Akiva was concerned because what's one of the main answers to theodicy? One of the main answers that everyone tries to give is that the reason that good things happen to bad people, bad to good, is because the wicked receive their reward in this world, and the righteous receive their reward in the world to come. So Rabbi Akiva said, until now, I was afraid that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus was receiving his reward fully in this world, and he would have nothing waiting for him in the world to come. And now that I can see, despite the fact that, of course, I empathize that he's experiencing this excruciating pain toward the end of his life, I can now know confidently that he's indeed among the righteous, and that there's a great reward awaiting for him in the world to come. So, and that's what it means when we say we thank God for the good, Chol Tov, in this world, and we pray to God that should not detract from what we have waiting in store for us in the world to come. And then I think, let me see. I think that brings us. There may have been one other idea that I checked off that I wanted to share. If not, then I was able to. We did the fourth cup one, and just making sure I got through all the things I checked off for you guys. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Back to the Chasim Sofer. The Chasim Sofer on Haggadah. So there's a. Oh,
Sorry to interrupt. Is there any Kohanim here?
Kohanim?
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna bring the casket.
Casket? Is it a funeral?
We have a funeral.
Oh, I didn't know there's a funeral today.
Hold on to your class.
We're waiting we're finishing in 3 minutes.
Fine, I just did want to bring in.
Oh.
Just out of respect, we're gonna wait.
Was this a member of the shul?
No.
Okay, just stop here. Okay.
Fine,
Yeah.
All right, Tommy. Tommy's one of the great pillars of our community. So we appreciate all the good work that you do for us.
Thank you. I
Very-
appreciate what you guys do.
Okay, thank you, 5 minutes.
Oh, wait, I just want to check.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll wrap up right over here. He's one of the very big tzaddik in our community here. All of you guys who are involved with Chaver Kadisha, you know firsthand. So he's not someone he's one of Gallagher Funeral Home. So
Ooh, I know who he's talking.
you don't want to have to meet him. But if you are in that situation, he's the person that you want. And I don't get a commission for that. But yeah, we fully recommend. But shouldn't need for a long time. Anyway, people we're going to hear this recording while you tour, what the heck just happened? All right. So let's finish this up. So the Drushas of Chassam Sofer points out that Haggadah is actually, we sing it kind of like a pub, like one of those pub songs, like Haggadah, right? We've already had our 4 cups of wine, right? So it's basically like one of those bar songs at the end. He actually says it's the opposite. It's a kina, it's an elegy, it's a lamentation. And the first part of it, he says Haggadah because we would bring the carbon chagiga, we bring the carbon pesach, and we are lamenting how nowadays we can no longer bring those two Gediyim anymore, and apparently the Gemara and thinking Pesachim indicates that you would spend 2 zuz in order to purchase it, and so this is actually, he says, is a lamentation. This is similar to something at the beginning of the Haggadah. I was about to say the beginning of the Haggadah. Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi in Masei Hashem, he says that halach ma'anya, when we say, what's it? Anyone who's in need, come and partake of the Korban Pesach. It sounds very nice and inclusive and welcoming, but that too is lamenting that it used to be we had to have a chabura, a pre-designated group to eat the Korban Pesach. Now it's such a casual affair; anyone can just come in and eat from the Korban Pesach. So it's kind of like the anti-inclusive terminals. But it's very interesting that I noticed that at different points during the Seder, the Haggadah. I think this is something that we notice at a lot of our own Pesach Seder tables. That on the one hand, we celebrate what we have, but we also, whether on a familial level, we recognize those who are not here with us anymore. And I think on a national level for the Jewish people this year, we have to take stock of the fact that God should save the hostages and all the people who are in line of fire right now. We recognize what we don't yet have. So the Pesach Haggadah is kind of walking this dialectic, if we might say, or to use some Soloveitchik Lashonos, of celebrating the Geula, but also pining for the ultimate Geula that we've not yet achieved. But God willing, the Jewish people, God knows we need it, should experience very soon and speedily in every meeting in our taste very soon. All right.
So what do you think about like the egg, taking the salt water and all that stuff? Doesn't that fill you up and all that? And